Many Iran experts say that Iran's leaders don't understand our Constitution. So they need to understand that under our Constitution, Congress plays a very important role of approving international agreements. And any deal that is not approved by the Congress won't be accepted by the Congress now or in the future. We don't know what the final terms of the deal are, but we know so far that Susan Rice, the President's national security advisor, has already conceded that Iran will have a robust uranium enrichment capability.
Well, likely Democratic presidential contender Hillary Clinton will address her private use of email while she was Secretary of State after her speech at the United Nations coming up very soon. We'll talk about that. So what should Republicans do with what the media has deemed a sizable controversy? Welcome back to MidPoint. We're having former American ambassador, author, and conservative political activist, also former presidential candidate, Alan Keyes. Great to have you back with us, sir.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to talk about a couple of things. We'll talk about Hillary Clinton and what she needs to say or what we don't think she'll say. But let's talk about this letter from the U.S. Senate, 47 U.S. senators sent to the nation of Iran. There's been a lot of controversy about this. Do you think this end around, as some have called it, of the president was justified?
Well, I think there are strong feelings in this country that arise from the fact that Barack Obama seems to be acting in a way that's seriously damaging to present and future interests of the United States. And I think the folks in the Senate want to make sure there's no miscalculation on the part of Iran and other countries in the world about the strength of our resolve in terms of both our understanding of the complexities in the Middle East and of the dangers that will be posed by the possession of nuclear weapons by Iran, or our willingness to stand firm and forthrightly for the things that we think are going to be most conducive to making sure that, some terrible and catastrophic war doesn't break out in that part of the world because they have badly calculated about the resolve of the United States. So in that respect, I understand it. However, I also think it's a symptom of the fact that we've had bad leadership, if you don't mind my saying so, from the GOP and the Congress, who have allowed the impression to be created that they are not, in fact, strongly concerned with Obama's lawlessness, with the way in which he has end-run the Congress.
Let me jump in there, because that really sets us up for my next question for you. There have been several opportunities, for the House GOP leadership in Congress to hold the president accountable using constitutional apparatus like the power of the purse, yet they have not been willing to do that.
Well, see, I think that's a problem. And I think that problem, the fact that they haven't used the constitutional means to call the public's attention to the great dangers that are posed by Obama's policies, by the lawlessness of his edicts on immigration, by the unilateral way he has gone about conducting foreign policy, by the treacherous way, to be quite frank, that he has been dealing with some of our friends and, making nice with our enemies in ways that have been seriously damaging to America. And yet, the Senate leadership, for instance, has been conducting business as usual, approving people for high positions in defense and the law enforcement department, justice, just like there was no lawlessness and we were dealing with a regular administration. So I think the senators felt they had to kind of reach for something that is not, as Obama says, treasonous, nothing treasonous about it, but it is imprudent, because it plays into the hands of people in the world who want to see America as divided.
Exactly.
And when we speak with a divided voice, we are weakened. The founders knew this, and they talked about it when they were talking about the ratification of the Constitution. They gave the Senate the role it's supposed to play, and because some of the feckless Republican Senate leaders have not been using the powers that they're supposed to have and exercising them with responsibility, they have now produced a situation where the only way that I think a strong message can be sent on this vitally important issue is a way that, in my opinion, is not the best in terms of the strength we project in the world, because unity is strength, and the president is supposed to be able to speak for the whole American people. Now, it's his own fault that he doesn't, but it's also the fault of a GOP leadership that hasn't held him accountable for not respecting the Constitution.
There was also this bipartisan bill, too, in the U.S. Senate, which was sponsored by Bob Menendez. We know he's in a little bit of trouble, got some things to worry about right now, but also Bob Corker. And it had a number of signees as well, not the 67 needed. But it seems like if the bipartisan group of senators that support that bill, calling for a congressional review of the Iran deal, if they could get 67 senators to sign on to that, there would be nothing the president could do. He could override, or they could override his veto.
Well, I think that's clear, and I think, but you have to have that in mind. I mean, you're in a situation where, because I think they are double-minded people on this side of the Republican Senate leadership, they talk about his lawlessness, his excesses, his lack of regard for basic U.S. interests in national security and otherwhere, and then they go around the world campaigning for this trade partnership for the Pacific that has been conducted in a way that cuts the Senate out of its proper role and that seeks to force them to just rubber stamp an agreement he's already made. He has been led to miscalculate, and I think is fully convinced of the weakness of their resolve. And sadly, I think that then leads to a need to stand up in ways that are perhaps imprudent in order to try to prove that you're not. What they ought to be doing is thinking through and making use of the proper constitutional procedures. Then these extraordinary kind of gestures wouldn't be needed.
Well, the adversarial relationship between this administration, this president, this White House, and Congress goes back basically to the day he took office. Next time around in 2016, since you ran for president, sir, I wanted to ask you if the American voter should start considering somebody who might be able to work a little bit better with Congress, maybe somebody a little bit more than 2 years of experience serving.
No, I beg to differ. I think that Congress has worked extraordinarily well with Barack Obama by caving and surrendering in every possible respect to the things that he's doing.
Now, I don't think this administration would agree with that assessment, but I see your point.
So I think that these leaders, McConnell and Boehner, have sold out their constituents, have sold out the people who voted for them, so that they could work hand in glove with Barack Obama in ways that are damaging to this country. And I think it has to stop.
Now, there has been some discussion recently, especially as we looked at the Homeland Security funding fight, that there was maybe a little bit of a rift that had developed between Mitch McConnell and John Boehner. Do you hear anything about that? Do you believe that to be true?
Well, I guess I haven't seen the concrete. I only look for results, and I think a lot of people are now realizing that all these phony gestures and phony votes and other things they contrive to try to make themselves look good politically don't make up for the fact that when the smoke clears, things are going ahead on a lawless, unconstitutional basis that they've been decrying and doing nothing about. And I think it all has to do, at the end of the day, with the fact that they have signaled for years that they don't intend to use the key instrument the founders gave the Congress, which is impeachment, in order to bring the case to the American people for what's going on. If they had done that before the last election, they might very well have won a majority in the Senate that would have prevented all of these things from going on.
Well, we know they don't seem willing to use the I word very often, but you are. Ambassador Alan Keyes, thanks so much for being with us, sir. A pleasure to talk to you.
Glad to be with you. Bye-bye.
All right, yeah, there you heard it. Alan Keyes using the I word again there. Speaking of eyes, all things eye, well, maybe not anymore. Apple's moving on to its Apple Watch. We're not hearing much about the iPod. We're going to take a look, though, at the Apple Watch, Apple, Tim Cook, CEO, and Apple's new plans for your health. What does it all mean? That's coming up with Eric Schiffer and Nick Tate, New York Times bestselling author, right after this Newsmax Now update.